Now, if the Court of Appeal has said clearly that the first step to take if you're dissatisfied with the conduct of a judicial officer is to report him to the NJC, then that is binding on the government. And incidentally, all cases that had been filed in courts against judges were withdrawn by the various prosecutorial agencies after the Court of Appeal made that decision. And the Code of Conduct Tribunal has itself applied that decision. I was one of the lawyers to Honorable Justice Sylvester Nguta of the Supreme Court, who was taken to the Code of Conduct Tribunal. And when we raised that objection, that case was thrown out. And there have been so many others. So it's really strange that the federal government, which was very well aware of that case, in fact, the federal government has appealed that decision to the Supreme Court, should now act against it. I heard the comment there that these are interesting times. No, these are dangerous times. And the danger here is that the merits of the matter no longer have precedence. The procedural errors have doomed whatever infractions the government may have alleged as having been committed by the CJN. So it's important that process be followed. That's the most fundamental thing in law. Process, due process, so that justice is not only done, but as we say, is manifestly seen to have been done. And don't forget, everything is about timing. And the timing of this is quite curious, to say the least.
What makes this timing curious for you?
Well, first of all, I've read the charges. Some of them relate to asset declaration that covered the period 2005. And 2005 to now is how many years? And then the CJN, first of all, it took several months before he was confirmed. During that period, we assumed that the federal government was combing over his records to see if there's anything that would disqualify him. Eventually, he was confirmed. Now, all of these facts would have been known to the government. So why now, a few weeks to the general elections? And as you can see, the various political parties have already jumped into the fray and taken sides. Some for, some against. The ruling party is saying, yes, go ahead. It's a fight against corruption. And you can see the reaction from the other side. That is why this timing is, it just doesn't make sense.
All right, Mr. Zuku, I mean, the intendment of the petitioners here, there seems to be a big question mark about that. Do you also share that view?
Yeah, I think I do. I share the concerns that everybody is. I share everybody's concerns as it relates to this particular issue. But I still hold the view that, like the learned city advocate is saying about timing.
Do you feel though that the actions of the government on Onnoghen, do you feel it has the capacity to fuel instability in the country?
Why? It's not a single
because
person.
the South-South governors have all come out to say that this is a slant to the judiciary in the first hand, and also say that this action completely is tantamount to putting the political process in harm's way.
That's an unfortunate statement by the South-South governors. Yeah, it's just a single person who is allegedly said to have infringed the law of the land. So why would that cause tension in the police or in the country? I don't share that view. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right.
But you
the chief judge of the Abia State was recently removed by the NJC. Somebody petitioned.
By the NJC?
Yes. The chief judge was removed. Somebody petitioned, just the way somebody petitioned against the president CJN.
So how come the petition did not go to the NJC?
Why would the petition go to the NJC?
Why should it be different from other petitions that have gone through the NJC?
NJC does not prosecute. They don't.
They recommend.
They recommend. Yeah, I consider they recommend, but they don't prosecute.
But you just said here that they
no, by virtue of by virtue of the Constitution, the 5th schedule of the Constitution, it is a duty of the Attorney General to recommend to the Code of Conduct Bureau any public officer who has infringed the law. Okay. It is not the NJC's business to prosecute. It is the duty of the Attorney General to prosecute.
Okay, Mr. Bani, let's clarify something here. Is the Chief Judge of a state, I just want to clarify, the Chief Judge of a state is a public officer, right?
That's right.
The CJN is also a public officer.
Public officer, yeah.
So why would it be that a petition is written to the NJC as regards a Chief Judge of a state, but a petition here is written to the Attorney General as regards the CJN?
Yeah, it depends on the allegation. What is the allegation of the CJN? He is said to have probably given false information or withheld information that has to do with the Code of Conduct Bureau Act.
Criminal offense or judicial misconduct?
Well, for me, if you fail to disclose certain amount of money that is in your bank account as a judicial officer, to me, is a misconduct for which reference must be made to NJC to look into. Even though he is the head of the NJC, at that point, he is going to recuse himself. He's not going to preside over that particular process until a decision is reached and a recommendation made. And so we are saying with this CJA Abia State he was mentioning, I think what the woman was alleged to have done is different from what the CJA now of the Federation is alleged to have been. So that is a proper procedure. The proper place to go is CCT9 in the circumstance, yes.
The public officer and the judicial officer.
Yes.
At what point do you set aside the public nature of service to look at the judicial nature of service?
Very intelligent question. I also was considering that issue yesterday. The CJN is a public officer as defined by the Constitution. He is also a judicial officer as defined by the Constitution. So he has two layers now. As a public officer, this is what should be applicable. But as a CJN, the Constitution itself went further because of the importance of that office. There is not somebody just wake up tomorrow and just throw away or disgrace or do anything. For you to do removal of the CJN, it must go to the Senate, and it must be 2/3 majority, after which the president now is advised to remove him. So that particular, provision of the Constitution is to ensure the independence of the judiciary, because that is the head of the judiciary. So it's a unique position.
Did the Constitution say anything about the CJN airing? When he airs? When Section 292 says he can be removed. So that means that something must have happened for his removal. He must commit something for his removal. Exactly. And he gives the Senate the authority to do that. And so it doesn't mean that he is God. He cannot sin. But if he does sin, which authority removes him? It is the Senate that does that with 2/3 majority, then recommendation is made to the president. He goes ahead to do that. That is to secure that position, to secure that office. So it's not something you toy with. The CJN is the head of a particular arm of government, just like you have the judiciary, you have the executive, you have the legislative arm of government. So he is the head. So the Constitution went further to make a special provision protecting that office, so that you cannot wake up any morning and feel you don't like his face or you don't like the way he smiles, and they go ahead
how do you reconcile the office of the CJN?
Yes.
And knowing fully well that he is the leader of the NJC, as a matter of fact. Fine. And then you have a case that has to be tendered to the NJC.
That's right.
To preside over who is the lord even of the NJC.
He cannot be a judge in his case. Anytime any matter involves him that comes before the NJC, of course, he's not going to preside. He can't be a judge in his case. So he has to have somebody else